All right, we're on page 410. You asked me yesterday about the non-Jews and Tuma and Tara and the way this works.
Interesting discussion.
I only had time to partially study. I had a random surprise guest from New York pop into my house today, so as I was preparing, I just got distracted. What I found so far, the Gemara Masechet Yevamot has a two-way argument between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Chachamim, every other rabbi who was alive in the generation.
And this is where?
In the Talmud Masechet Yevamot. But before Yevamot, we find in Ohalot, it's a Mishnah in Ohalot, the Mishnah says that all bodies cause Tumah, impurity. Man or woman, Jew or non-Jew, child or adult, even a baby, it talks about there. The Gemara then goes on to say in Yevamot, the Shimon Bar Yochai says that he doesn't believe that a non-Jewish body gives off impurity. And the Chachamim disagree with him and say it does. It seems like the Rambam, for whichever reason, rules against the majority opinion and follows Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It seems like the Tosfot, who normally goes with the minority opinion, here goes with the majority opinion, and rules that non-Jewish bodies do give off impurity. I didn't get as far as Shulchan Aruch and practically what the rabbis of this generation say, but suffice to say, it's an old argument. The crux of shouldn't be, are non-Jews people, are they not? It has very much to do with the very complicated laws of Tumah and Tahara, which don't really have such a ramification in this world, aside from Kohanim who are preparing for when the redemption comes to be pure. And even purity and impurity are not the proper words. Tumah and Tahara don't mean impure. Impure implies dirty. That's not the definition of Tumah. It's a status. The status of Tumah. It's a status of Tahara.
So even though Kohanim shouldn't go into cemeteries and do other kinds of things for Tumah, I mean, if they do, are they like permanently impure? That's the problem. There's like no good way to purify them, so they're sort of stuck
They
with
would need
that.
the red heifer.
They need the red heifer.
So, no, which they don't have.
We don't have. Yeah.
And so essentially they become, and you should know, it's more complicated than this. Tumah doesn't just come from direct contact. Tumah, especially from a dead body, I mean, a dead body is the highest level of Tumah that exists. There's Tumah from other things. Tumah can come from certain bodily fluids, Tumah can come from different, Tumah comes in all kinds of levels. Tumah met is the most, the heavyweight Tumah, and it can be passed on not just through being in contact, but like we said, being in the same building as
You have to
Tumah.
break all these vessels that are made of clay that pick up the tumah if it's
Correct,
in the same room.
correct.
Or tent.
Very good. Someone,
The mat.
the Gemara is filled with such stories, such discussions. If a person touches the person, who touched the person, who touched the person, who touched the person, who touched the dead body, the person also becomes Tamemet.
Oh,
Every single
It
person
transfers
here,
endlessly.
it's one of those, and there's limitations, but it's
That
touching.
transference.
If I touch the person, who touched the person, who touched the person who was on the Chevra Kadisha somewhere, the chances are I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what about the people who are in the Chevra Kadisha? They have to touch the dead body.
But the Chevra
They're
Kadisha
not
are not
Kohanim.
Kohanim. They're
They're
allowed
not
to
Kohanim.
become impure.
Oh, anybody. Oh, in Kohanim.
Yes.
Okay.
What it would mean, though, is that they would have to stay away from the Beit HaMikdash for a while. The practical ramification for this today is going up to the Temple Mount.
Oh.
If a met is not allowed onto the Temple Mount, or at least certain parts of the Temple Mount, and we are all under the assumption that one of us has come in contact with a dead body somewhere in our life, so how can you go up to the Temple Mount at all? This is the big question.
Yeah.
The question of going up to the Temple Mount is not of are you allowed to nowadays or not. What changed nowadays? What changed is we don't have the tools to become pure enough to go up to the Temple Mount.
I.e. the red heifer.
Yes, a mikvah can help you get onto certain parts of the Temple Mount, but not onto the Kodesh HaKodeshim, which is why you have three camps. You have the camp of the Ravad. The Ravad says the Temple Mount, since it was destroyed, has no more holiness on it. You could go anywhere you want to the Temple Mount. This is the minority opinion that nobody rules like. You have the opinion of Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who follows the Rambam, who says there are parts of the Temple Mount which were not part of the original Beit HaMikdash, and therefore you're allowed to go there if you do take certain preparations. You go to the mikveh, you wait 7 days, you take off your leather shoes, so on and so forth, and he has mapped out on the Temple Mount where you can and cannot go. Those Temple Institute people, that's where they're going. They're going to the places that are for sure not where the Beit HaMikdash actually stood. And then you have the third camp who says we can't go at all because we don't know where those places are, so we have to just stay away. Okay, I understand all the opinions. I'm just sharing. This is where it comes from. Tamemet. This is back to the origins of everybody today is under the assumption that we are we are impure of this fashion.
So if you are impure because you touched your relative's body or something, so how does that impact you in your life today?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Only has to do with going to
Better
the
be
Mikvah.
You must understand that in general, like why would being at the funeral of a loved one make me impure, so to speak? We're not talking here about impurity like a dirtiness. We're saying a person comes in contact with death. Judaism says that when a person comes in contact with death, you can't just walk away from that. You can't just, I was at the funeral, now let's go for ice cream. It doesn't, not in Judaism, it doesn't work that way. I now have to think, am I allowed to enter Bet Knesset? Can I go up to can I be that close to Hashem when I've just experienced one of life's greatest tragedies? Can I? The answer is no. So we take time off, we take 7 days, we go to the mikveh, we connect back to ourselves. Tumah Tahara involves much more than just the technicality of did I touch a body or not, but it's the experience that I went through. When a woman has to go to the mikveh, this whole concept, I came in contact with potential life that was lost. If this doesn't change me, if it doesn't change how I'm feeling, then I did something wrong. Clearly, I'm the same reason why in Talmudic times, a man, when he went through the same kind of loss of life, would go through the same process. Because how could that what exited your body had a potential to give life, and it didn't. That doesn't shake you up at all. You're not going to think about that, meditate over that, go to the mikveh for that. Of course you would. The laws of Tumah Tahara are more than just sheer technicalities, but in today's generation we consider ourselves so far removed from what is actually holiness and lack thereof that we don't deal so much in the laws of Tumah Tahara. Okay, let's try to get down some things here. Halovesh beged, under the 2 lines on page 410. Somebody who wears the clothing, shal arba kanfot, of 4 corners. Sheyesh bo tzitziot, that has tzitziot. Asur lo likanes lebet hakvarot, it's forbidden from entering into the cemetery. Kol shehatzitziot nigarot al hakvarim, so long as the tzitziot are dragging along the tombs. In parentheses, o al karka betoch 400 dvarim, it also is not allowed to drag on the ground. That is within 4 amot, or 6 feet of a grave. מפני שנראה כלועג למתים שאינם יכולים לקיים מצוות ציצית, because it seems like a person is laughing at the dead who are not able to fulfill the mitzvah ציצית, ונאמר, like it says, המשלי, לועג לרש חרף עושהו, ואם הרים את ציציות עד שאינן נגרעות על הקברים מותר, but if a person lifts their ציציות to make sure that it doesn't drag on the ground or on the graves, it's okay. It doesn't have to be tucked in according to this opinion, but it's okay. וכל זה דווקא בבגד העשוי ללבישה. This is only talking about tzitzit that are actually clothing, not just tzitzit. Sheyesh ba'arba kanfot, that has 4 corners. Aval talitot ha'asiyot lemitzvah, but talitot that were made for mitzvah only, like what we wear today. Asur afilu ein tzitzot negot ha'aretz. It's forbidden to wear those in the cemetery, even if the tzitzit don't touch anything. V'im hayu ha'tzitzit mechusot, and if the tzitzit were covered, yesh la'akel afilu b'talit shel mitzvah. We can be lenient regarding those kind of talitot.
Open the door a little bit.
Sure. For me, I'm okay. On page 411. B'chol hanal, in all of the above cases, page 411, in the middle, en lechalek ben kvarim shel gdolim, we don't make a difference between adult graves, levin kvarim shel ktanim, or children's graves, chas v'shalom. V'af bahem sheich adam shel leg l'rash chav v'seu, and even by them, there exists this concept of not mocking the dead. ויש אומרים שאף בכפרים של נשים יש לחנו בזה. And some say that even by graves of women, one should be careful. Even by the graves. Meaning because women don't have to wear tzitzit, so you're not mocking them.
Oh.
But even there, some say one should be careful. So here you have to differentiate also a few things. By a child. What's the logic that maybe by a child's grave we would be allowed to wear tzitzit?
Because the
The
child
minor
is
is not obligated.
Very good. Minor child not obligated in tzitzit. So why should I be careful not to wear mitzvot there?
Because had he lived, then he would be able to have fulfilled the mitzvah.
Very good.
So-
One reason. Had he lived, he would have reached this point. Two. Give me another reason. Think Kabbalah.
Well, the child may have already been wearing tzitzit.
Yes, explain better according to Kabbalah, not according to what you're saying.
I think at age 3 they start wearing.
Okay, fine. So Barry's bringing up that idea. Let's.
Remembering a past existence. Where he
Could it
lived.
be that not every child, according to Kabbalah, the belief is that children pass away young because they're really adults who came from another world to finish their tikkun. In that case, this soul that is above the grave is actually an older soul than the one that was buried.
In other words, that is an adult.
Yes,
in a
therefore
previous
this concept would still apply to not mock their neshama. Last but not least, there's another reason. This seems to be the most simple reason. Pshat is any mitzvah that is done by a grave. Any mitzvah, doesn't make a difference what it is could be mocking a person that, see, I can do mitzvot and you can't. Therefore, this would apply also to a woman's grave. It's not the fact of whether she would have worn tzitziot or not worn tzitziot. It's the fact that you can live in this world and perform mitzvot and I can't.
But would anyone have such a lack of kavod to be like that?
No, it's not
And-
intentional. It's not like we're going into the cemetery mocking people. But our actions, even if we don't intend something, our action could offend the person.
So a person would, after leaving the limitations of a body, would have those kind of prejudice. I mean, it's like saying, look, he's got a nice suit on and I don't. I mean, well, you can't wear a suit anymore.
Is this
so why
is this
should-
a body limitation?
good
A
question?
soul's desires to do mitzvot. When a soul is not inside of a body, it cannot do any mitzvot. Therefore, a soul is essentially suffering when it cannot do mitzvot. It's in pain.
But
We don't think of the world like this. We think like a person passed away, oh, it's in a bitter place.
That's what we're saying. Like with Kadishas, don't try and like bring him down here so often. And,
Very good with Hashkavat. You don't want to drag into someone. To the contrary, the reason we do Kaddish and Hashkavot are because they can no longer lift themselves up. You know, the Rav parents always told me, there's a famous book of Kabbalah written by Rabbi Yehuda Fatay. When I first studied it, I was very shaken up. Like a soul's coming from the other world, talk to you. Parents said, you're looking at the book wrong. So you have to understand, if the soul came down to Iraq, and they said, listen, I need you, Rabbi Yehuda Fatay, to fix my soul. Rabbi Yehuda Fatay should have said, but isn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai up there? Isn't Moshe Rabbeinu up there? What about the Arizal? They're not there? Why did you come to me? I'm way after them. The answer is because, and if it would be heretical for me to say if this wasn't the truth, what you can do in this world as a human being who is alive, that Arizal can no longer do as a dead person. It's a huge thing to think about. You're right, we may not be the Arizal, but the fact that we can pray, that we can wear tzitzit, that we can light candles, that we can eat kosher food, we can do mitzvot that they cannot do anymore. Moshe Rabbeinu cannot fix a soul in the other world. The soul must come here to somebody who's alive, who has that force inside of them.
Only live human beings can do mitzvahs.
Very good. So essentially when a soul passed away, they passed away at the state of where they were in their mitzvot.
Interesting.
And that is why we try to do so much for a person who passed away. Which is why, especially for somebody who passed away not righteous, we try... See, I don't do a hashkavah here for Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. I don't feel that he needs me to uplift his soul in heaven. Who do I do hashkavah for? For people that I think they maybe were not perfect in their lifetime. So we have to help them out. That's the greatest chesed we can do for them. I would be presumptuous of me to do a hashkavah for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Well, I'm going to uplift Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. No. But this is the other way that you have so much strength. And when we walk by the neshama feels that, wow, I wish I could be like you. Something to think about.
It's also the question of, since we're on this topic.
So what I'm trying to say is it's
Yeah.
not pettiness. It's
I understand,
it's
yeah.
to the contrary.
Mitzvah is nothing to do with personality and ego and so forth. But if souls reincarnate, how do we know that soul is still up there? Or is it some aspect of the soul, the essence of it, that's still there? But what if so-and-so is now in another body, in another country, in another
For those
life?
who prescribe themselves to the belief in reincarnation, they would have to understand, so is there anything left of the other soul? What happens to the soul when it marries somebody else? Who does the soul spend eternity with in the Garden of Eden? The first mate, the second one? these are all questions that can be asked, and I'm sure that a qualified Mekubal might be able to answer, but my assumption would be that when we say Gilgul, maybe it's not the full soul that went, there's a part of a soul that's left in
Or
the tomb, there's another part.
recombinant DNA.
This is a great question
Yeah.
to speak to Mekubalim about. This is the kind of...
Otherwise, everybody be the same all the time.
it's like that Rizal uses the words, this person is a nitzotz, he's a spark of the soul of somebody else. It's not the exact same, it's a spark, there's something mixed in
Part
with
of
this
it.
person. It's kind of when you look at a child, it kind of looks like me, kind of looks like her. Is it me? It's not me. It's kind of like me. It bears resemblance. It has a part of me in it. It'll have certain temperaments that it was that it received. This perhaps is the most compelling reason of Loeg Lavash. So when we go to a cemetery, any kind of mitzvah that we're not doing for the people there, we must be careful about it. You will find though in Kabbalistic literature, if a person marries, for example, a widow. According to the Mekubalim, before the chuppah, there's a certain ceremony that is done to appease the soul of the previous husband. We don't want the previous husband to be jealous, so to speak, and to come and take retaliation on the soul of the new husband. By somebody who's divorced, it's not relevant. They are kind of happy they're not together. But by a person who tragically lost somebody, that person probably died loving the person and is going to have a hard time watching. So there's a big argument in the Gemara in general if souls who leave this world can actually see what happens in this world or not. There's a two-way argument in the Gemara. This is so out of my ballpark, so out of my jurisdiction that I'm just feeling like I'm blabbering here in front of the room. But
there's good questions to
these are
Yeah,
important
good
things,
questions, yeah.
important discussions. There are Mekubalim that write about these things. If you like a little bit of an inkling about this, Marlene has a book written by Rabbi Yehuda Fatai, who I just quoted to you. It's been translated before, but it just was reprinted. And I recommend it. It's in English. You can, I don't know what it's called. Minchat Yehuda it's called. And it's in English, and I recommend. He talks about such things in there. He talks about...
You remember the name?
It's a spooky book, so
I
it's the
can
kind of
send
book
it.
you don't want to read around people who get frightened easily. For example, my
send it to
wife
you now.
and my mother don't let me read this book in public.
No?
They get terrified of me reading this book. Okay, to each their own. It talks a lot about what's the difference in Mashiach. What's the difference in Mashiach, the Garden of Eden, and the world to come. We use them interchangeably, like Yimon Mashiach, Olam Haba, Gan Eden. So they're not the same thing. So what are they? So he'll sit down and define what is this, what is that, what is the next thing.
But that's
He's the one that says what happens all the Gilguls for different people.
Very
That
good,
you
yes,
talk about
this is
that.
the book that- very
This is actually very important because these words now are in Jewish vernacular all the time. Any wedding, simcha,
And people have no idea what they're saying.
and no idea what they're talking about. It
Correct.
becomes like it's actually cheapening
Yeah.
these very deep concepts.
Sure.
Because of-
And you have to understand that this is very much according to the Mekubalim who believe such things. There were Jewish teachers and still are who they don't believe in this at all. They don't believe in this understanding of Kabbalah, of Gilgulim. You have to be fair. There's not everybody subscribes to these beliefs, but those who do would do well spending time to understand what are these things. It's important. Like yes,
I don't think, just on a very drosh level, all the carefulness that we take when we're in a cemetery, it also makes us, the person, more sensitive and more respectful in general. So in a way, it's also for us as well as for the person who's
very good.
deceased.
We always today there's this whole style of I've been seeing this more and more in articles of mocking people who get offended. Now, there is truth to you don't have to get offended by everything I say, but to mock a person for doing something that was offensive to them and then making fun of them that they got offended, you offended them. What do you want? Do you want them to not be offended?
It's happening in the public discourse right now. Big
This
time
is
in
right
this
now.
country.
I know exactly what I'm saying, and I'm on purpose talking about this. You're right that you are allowed to express yourself in certain ways, but the Torah took other people's offense very seriously. To this point, we're even taking the offense of other souls in a world that is not even in a realm that we see. We're taking their feelings into consideration. How much more so to people who are alive, to people who are with us? There are things that we could do that are insensitive. We don't mean bad, but they just come off as insensitive. The Torah demands for you to think before you do things. You know, I once had a student who was late to class, very late to class, and I asked him what was going on with him. Him and a friend were on their way to class from the dormitory, and there was a man who was on. Seems to have been in war. He lost both his legs. One he had a prosthetic leg on one, but he was like limping on these two crutches. And he had to run to class, but his friend ran past this guy, but he felt like, how could he run past the person who can't walk? And so he just waited. He walked for the whole way to school. He walked by this person, so he shouldn't pass him.
Wow.
I was very impressed.
That's
Now,
very
I don't,
sensitive.
you know,
very-
halakha doesn't
very-
demand from you such a thing, but I'm glad I asked because I could have just marked him down late. But this person clearly came from a place of, I'm sensitive to the person who can't walk. The Torah demanded for you? No, it doesn't demand for you. It demands for you to be a thinking, upright person. This is the same. These halachot come from the same place. You're going into a realm, you don't see anybody who's here, you don't offend. But you have to be careful. The actions that we do are they tell us who we are. They tell us the kind of people that we are. For the kind of people who are always offending people. Well, I don't understand why everyone's getting so offended. Well, you maybe the problem is in you. Maybe that's what has to be fixed. That's all I'm saying.
What's interesting about these things is that a lot of Jews who don't even believe in the next world or that a soul, or in a soul that a soul survives, will still do all these rituals and things and so forth. It's like another part of them knows what their intellects don't accept.
We'll refuse to accept. Very
It's
interesting.
so interesting.
All right, Chazak Yom V'chem. It's a cool mitzvah.
Exactly.